Well, hey there, it's Alka, and welcome to another episode of the Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm flying solo today. Jen's not feeling well, but we are still going to have an incredible session here together. Today's topic is near and dear to my heart. It's overcome feeling left behind. Yes, and we're talking about when you see someone else doing something that you want to do, but you haven't gotten there yet, and so you feel like you're being left behind, and that creates overwhelm because you still have yet to get there, and you don't know how, or you've been trying your best, and it just leads to a lot of emotional angst, which we all feel. I hear you, because I felt the same. So the problem with that is that leads to you being in a state that's not very positive, which then allows you to fall down that rabbit hole of, self-doubt, unworthiness, low self-esteem, frustration, and maybe even down to jealousy. So let's just move that back up to, hey, if I want to get somewhere, maybe I should do something about it. And what could I do, and how could I move forward? All right, so I'm going to share with you a couple of points today, 3 points. I always love that. But you've got to listen to this episode because, first of all, it's going to resonate with you. And second of all, this is a way for you to understand, first of all, what this is all about, why it's happening to you, and I'm going to give you 3 points and 3 sort of tasks or action steps you can take to overcome the feeling of being left behind, because it creates such overwhelm. All right, so those are my 3 points. So let's get started. All right, so the first is, let's see, I've got my notes here. The first is that you have to really understand a lot more about when these happen. So the first thing that it can trigger or the things that can trigger it are milestones. It's your birthday, like my birthday's coming up soon, and it's like when I'm recording this, and I was like, another year's gone by, or I'm reaching a sort of a round number. In that case, I start to think more about, am I being left behind? Have I gotten as far as I need to come in order for me to feel happy as to where my life is? I'm sure you've had that situation where you've decided to think back and see where you are and assess. And so it can get really overwhelming all of a sudden. And I don't want you to do that. So some other milestones are things like someone getting, like a baby being born, or someone passing away. What about graduation, or someone that is buying their first house, or it's the beginning of the new year, or it's like a specific year, like 2020 or 2000. And what about also specific ages? Like, let's say you have this impression that maybe by 25 you need to already have a house, or by age 30 you were going to be a millionaire. That was your decision. Or you're already 50 and you go like, by age 30 I was going to be a millionaire. What happened? Right? So you start, as the goal and the time gets further and further away from you, you start to feel very much left behind. But here's the thing. What if it just hasn't happened yet? And that's what the premise of our podcast today is, just to keep that in mind when you're going through this. Okay, so another way that this can get triggered is other people's life events cause you to reflect on your life event or your success that you think you should be having. And so, so like I said before, someone buys a house, or they get a new job, or they've retired, or something that just is a really good win for someone else, and you're like, yes, this is awesome. In the meantime, underneath you're going like, I'm left behind. I don't want this to happen. Like, I want this to happen to me, but it hasn't happened yet. Okay, so that's another way that this could get triggered, because there's a lot of visceral emotion with that, right? All right, and then the third way that this could get triggered is just from your own perception of what's happening in your life. All of a sudden you realize, I'm not as happy as I used to be. what's going on. And then so when you start to think about it and you start to say, okay, these are the things that are important to me, but I haven't reached them yet. So then there's like this gap between where you feel you should be and where you really are. And that's not related to like anybody else. It's just like, hey, you know what? When I was, in my 20s, I said, this is what my plan was. And now, hey, I'm 70 or whatever, hopefully not that late. But all of a sudden you realize, I haven't gotten there yet. What can I do? And I feel really behind. So those are some examples of what situations can arise where all of a sudden you start feeling that left behind feeling. And it's an icky feeling. It really doesn't feel so good and sit so well. Why? Because it relates to, it brings so much negative emotion with it. And we have to really curb our ability to go down that rabbit hole of negative emotions so that we can do something effectively positive about it and move on with our lives. Okay, so by understanding why this is happening to you, I think that's going to help you understand how you can and make a choice as to what you want to do with it. So here we go. So I'm going to talk a little bit about three things actually in particular about why this is happening. and then when you know that better and you understand why, then you'll probably feel much better, because our first go-to is jealousy, right? And unfortunately, despite our best efforts, we want to be happy for the other person. We want, that for whoever got that life event, situation, accomplishment, whatever. But deep down, ultimately, we haven't. And so therefore, it does turn to jealousy if you don't know how to perceive the event and understand why it's happening to you, why you're not like just full on 100% happy for the other person. There's this little nagging, oh, I'm left behind, right? Okay, so let's start with the first one. We carry our goals with us, even if we have yet to set our goals officially, like on a vision board, or I'm going to set my goal for, be this much, this much wealth is going to be in my hands by this date, or I'm going to have this job or whatever. And it doesn't even have to be that. It can just be from like childhood even. It's like, I'm going to be a doctor, or I'm going to be an artist, or I'm going to, help people's, I'm going to save people's lives. Whatever it is, but you're going to have that from very early on as one of your goals, because you felt like that's where you should be, especially when it comes from childhood, when everyone asks you, what are you going to be when you grow up? And you say that, and that's your goal. So now that you're grown up and you're something completely different, you go like, I think I'm being left behind. I don't really think that this is where I should be. And I thought that I was going to be somewhere else, but life got in the way. Responsibilities were, presented themselves. So this was the best choice I made. And so we have this false sense of responsibility to those goals, even if they didn't end up happening for us. And when they don't materialize and we get these prompts from the universe, like what we just talked about in point number 1, boy, oh boy, do they start giving you that visceral reaction of emotions that just flood open and you don't even know what's happening. All of a sudden you're crying or something like that, right? And I'm laughing because it happens to me. And it's like, why am I so upset at that someone else is doing well? It's because I personally thought that this was going to be where I was going to be. And as logically, maybe it even makes sense that I am where I'm supposed to be. But viscerally and subconsciously, I'm still going like, but I always wanted to be a ranch, owner or something. I don't know. But this is where you start to dig deep and understand what's really at the core and essence of your being as to why you are here on this earth. And when your childlike dreams haven't come true, for example, then you may actually start to really understand the disconnect and see that left behind in a broad, a really big gap, right? And of course, then you're going to feel really overwhelmed and upset and all the emotions that you don't really want to be feeling. All right. So the second reason why something happens is it's not really jealousy, but we feel jealousy because that's where we've gone to, because we don't know how to otherwise process it. And it really is our ego talking when we feel jealous. But really, it's your inner drive that has always been there. It's just been silenced because life gets in the way and things are busy and you make certain choices and you think you're doing the right thing. But then when you really think about it, you go like, well, but why am I here now? I'm like in this whole other place where I never thought I would be, right? And so at that point, you have to ask yourself, were you meant to be there to this inner goal faster? Or are you taking a certain journey that's going to be important for you to take before you get to that end goal? I always remember this story that I heard from Steve Jobs, where he took a couple of classes in university that were related to like handwriting and calligraphy and typography. And he said that was instrumental in him realizing that when he developed his computer, that he wanted to have that option, that it was not just basic computer text. And what would have happened if he hadn't have taken those classes? And when you're taking those classes and everyone's looking at you going like, why are you doing this? You're supposed to be in computer science. That it does make sense, right? But in the meantime, ultimately, those two things converged at some point in his life and made a huge difference to everyone in the world, right? Whoever has an Apple computer can attest to that. And even like not like a WordPress computer, or sorry, not WordPress. I use Apple all the time, but any other computer has now adapted all of these options with the fonts, whereas before that wasn't the case, right? And Android, that's what I'm looking for. And so the idea here, or PC, the idea here is to understand that maybe your journey is not what you believe it should be in terms of how you get there, but you are going to get there. It's just you have yet to get there, right? The word yet is very important. And maybe the idea here is that you needed to take that calligraphy class first. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do what you are going to do in the future to the degree that's going to make a huge change and difference, right? And so remember that it's your inner soul waking up and saying, hey, this is really important for me to understand where my journey is going. And also to say there is that inner yearning, and that's what's making me feel like I'm behind because I haven't gotten to there yet. And this takes away that sort of comparison aspect where, you see your neighbor or your friend or your brother or your sister, and they're doing differently and better than you, and yet you may or may not even exactly want what they have, but you kind of feel left behind, as if they're achieving what they want, but you're not achieving what you want. And it's because maybe your inner drive and soul is just waking up and realizing, oh yeah, that's right. And so take it like that rather than as pure jealousy. And then also you're behind, right? Okay, so ask yourself, and this is point number 3, in terms of why you feel this way and why you feel like you're left behind. But ask yourself, what's the problem? Is the problem that I'm on my own journey, but I'm just getting like a little bit impatient, or I am going to ego and basically getting jealous of someone else because I'm too impatient with my own journey, even though I know my journey is the right journey? Or is it that it's a true reflection of what's going on, that you really do need a switch, a change? For example, like if you're in your 9-to-5 job and you go like, I really want to be independent, have passive online income coming in, and I want to finally make money with my creativity, for example, because that's what we do. We teach people how to make money with their creativity. We ourselves are doing that. We've been doing it for 14 years, Jen and I, on a platform called Zazzle, and you know our story. If you don't, you'll hear about it soon enough, because we talk about it all the time. Not to be like to create a jealous situation. It's instead to motivate you, right? We switched from 9 to 5, And we made a switch that was really big and different than what we were used to. And it wasn't because we were still waiting for our journey to finally sort of show us the light. It was like we were taking massive action now, and we're going to go in this new direction because we feel like we need to do that. And it wasn't because we were left behind. It was just our next step. But then when you get to that next step, as if like when you're listening to this, and if you're just starting out on the platform Zazzle, and you're feeling really left behind because you go like, okay, how am I going to get to the level that Jen and Elka have gotten to? Because together the two of us have made over $1.5 million in Zazzle payouts. And the students that keep hearing about, they're also making so much money. How do I catch up to them? But the key here is you can't catch up to them. You have to be on your own journey. And so remember that. But if the problem is you need to switch and do something else, then when you do switch, recognize that there will be some behind. But if you take the right steps and do the right things, like get yourself a proven plan, get a coach, be in an environment where people are cheering you on and still providing motivation for you because of their success, then you're in the right spot to move at your own pace, and you don't feel left behind then. Because you're moving forward, right? Or if you actually are already on the journey that you're supposed to be on and you see these others, just reposition it, change the perspective so that you can understand that yes, they're on their journey and they're just they're happening. They're things that are, my gosh, I can't speak. The things that are happening to them are not necessarily what has to happen to you right now, right? It might happen to you in the future, but really, ultimately, you're on your own path. And if you feel good about it, then you're not behind anyway. That's the perception that you have to switch, right? Okay, so that's going to help you. And now I'm going to go into point number 3. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I don't forget anything here. And so I'm going to give you 3 ways that you can overcome feeling this left behind situation. And because it's really unnecessary, right? It's messing with you, if you want to say it that way. And because you either know that you're on the right path and you just can't be impatient, and you should just be happy and ready to enjoy the journey. Or there's the other side where you're going to take action and you're going to switch, and then you're actually taking the action you need and making the decision so you can't be behind anyway because you're on your journey as well. All right, so the first of the 3 ways is really important, and it's going to be the hardest for you because you have to trust how your life unfolds. Oh, but why don't we have control? Actually, you do. You still have control because you have choices, but you have to trust not only in the opportunities that come along, you have to be playful, you have to be excited, and you have to believe that it's going to happen for you because you're taking certain specific steps towards that journey, which are your choices, right? Remember I was talking about the second one, if you're not on the right path, choose a different path, take actions to get you on that path. And so that's what you're doing, right? But then when Steve Jobs saw that there was these university courses on calligraphy and typography, maybe he trusted in the universe that said, hey, I'm going to take these, right? He's not going to, he wouldn't have known at that point in time that they would have such a significant impact on him, but he probably just did it out of playfulness and because he's on his journey, right? Now, what I want you to do is believe that. Trust that your life will unfold as it's meant to be unfolded. If your life is a series of unfortunate events, which could be the case, then it's not unfolding the way it should. Because then you should definitely take some action to get you out of that negative zone. But if you're just impatient and your life's pretty darn good anyway, it just your major goal hasn't happened yet, well then we know that you're on the right path. You just have to start enjoying the journey. And you have to be excited and ready. And as those opportunities come along, you have to be in the right mindset to be able to say, I think I'm going to take that opportunity, or no, I think that one doesn't really suit me, or doesn't like feel good to me, or like whether you feel like you get a sign from God, or the universe is giving you a message, or it just feels like intuition wise, hey, I think this is the one, this is the choice I need to take, or the opportunity I need to take to keep moving me forward. And then if that's the case, then you take it. And if it's not the case, you don't take it. But in the meantime, you don't feel like you're left behind, because the main thing is you're on your own journey. All right, and I'm going to give you an affirmation for this. I'm going to actually give you 2 affirmations just to kind of really emphasize this every day. Do it daily, at least once or twice. If you want to do it like as many times as possible during the day, because I keep getting these signs from the universe that are saying like, that's keeping you in doubt, then you want to say this even more often. So here it is. Okay, I am exactly where I need to be on my life's amazing journey. I'm exactly where I need to be on my life's amazing journey. I'm going to put this in the show notes, and so you'll be able to get that and just write it down if you haven't caught it already, or you can replay this part. All right, so second way that you can help overcome feeling left behind is to stop comparing. Stop comparing to everything other than yourself. All right, so the comparing will lead to judging. You're basically using others as a marker for your own ability to succeed in life, and in terms of where you should be in life, because you never know, maybe you should be even further than them, and you're just going to put the bar as high as they are. Maybe your bar should be higher. So keep the comparison down to 0 for others, because it's going to suck the happiness out of your life. Literally, it's going to lower your self-esteem. It's going to influence your life's choices. And you know what? It may not even be the best choices for you just because you saw someone else make those choices or hit that goal or whatever. I still remember this very incredibly powerful race that I watched. There was runners that were racing. The one person was way out in front. And then all of a sudden they decided to look back, to compare, right, to who else is behind them. And because of that, first of all, that action stopped the pace of the running. And then secondly, that allowed his brain to not be focused on where he was going, but on whatever else was happening behind him. And because of that, he still won the race because he was so far ahead, but then he didn't beat the record. Had he kept focused, had he moved forward, and just waited till afterwards to see where everybody else was, when it didn't actually matter anymore, then he wouldn't have been influenced by his decision to slow down and to casually go across the line. Instead, he might have had a world record or hold some sort of record, right? That's the difference. If you consider others to be your metric as to where you should be, then who's to say that you'll never, whether or not you'll actually flourish and be as good as you could possibly be. And so talk about not being left behind. How about not letting yourself go as far as you need to go and how far you're capable of going? All right, so stop comparing, put those blinders on. Don't look at anyone else who's in the same race as you, because they're either there or they're not there. And either way, you need to take your race and take your best time and make sure that you get to where you need to go, whether it's across the finish line or another 100 meters after that, because you're so amazing. Okay, so I'm going to give you an affirmation for this too. This one is, I will only compare my progress to my own. I will only compare my progress to my own. When it comes to the Zazzle marketplace and selling on Zazzle, a lot of our students and clients, they always have the sales in mind. So they want a certain dollar value per month as a metric to see how well they're doing. And it's a great metric. It really is. Key performance indicator, right? The problem is how to analyze it and what to do when you see the result. And when you start to move into comparison, and it's a negative comparison, so that, I didn't make as much money as I did the month before, or I never didn't make as much money as, Christine or Brandon or Susan, some of our 100K lifetime earnings students, then it becomes a problem. That's not the right way to compare. The right way to compare is to compare your result compared to a previous result. So, and always position it in a positive light, because even if you have consistent lower and lower earnings, maybe they're still higher per month compared to last year's month. So let's say you had like $1,000 in May that you earned, and then you earned $800 in June, and you're upset because you're comparing the 1,000 to the 800, and it's like, I made less. But if you look at the June's numbers from the previous year, and they were like 4 times, like this year is 4 times last year's month, then that's a good comparison. It means even though the dollar value that you were consistently earning in this year is a little bit lower than what you expected, it's still so much higher than what you did the previous year in that month. And this is where the comparison works in your favor rather than it feeling like you're behind. And so I want you to do that kind of comparison. So the affirmation is, I will only compare my progress to my own. And you're going to come up with a lot of great positive things that you can say about yourself, where you're finally going to realize you're not behind at all. You're just on your own journey, and the journey continues to get better because you're always improving. All right, the third one speaks back to the what you need to do if you've gone to that, like sort of come to that fork in the road where you realize I really need to change, i.e. like let's say we're going to, you don't like your 9-to-5 anymore and you want to have another business, or if you're ready to retire but you want to do something new, or if you are working at your 9-to-5 but you've just had some kids and you want to stay home with them and you want a different income source, right? Rather than having to go back to work and put your kids in the babysitters, like in the nursery or some babysitter or daycare facility, which is what I had to do when I first started with when I had my kids. And I didn't like it, so that's why I worked on working out Zazzle and making it work for me. And I'm just so happy I did, because I spent pretty much their entire childhood with them. And I love that, because in the meantime I was still creating my own online business that it has made me so much money. Okay, so if you're in that position where you go like, I need to change, and it's because you feel like you're behind or there's something different that you want to do, then the idea here is to go for the goals that you want. But when you go for them, it's not just a decision, and you have to take massive action. And the massive action is to find yourself some place or some way, like either a strategy or a roadmap or a course or something that will get you where you need to go. And that should preferably come from a coach that has already achieved what you want to achieve. And also surround yourself with the environment of people, whether that be a coach or also just people that are maybe in the coaching program, or your friends, or some other people that have been successful at what you want to do that just become acquaintances. All of those are going to help you stay within an environment that's going to be conducive to you achieving your goal. And that's going to allow you not just to feel jealous about those other people that are successful, but it's in an environment where you have people who are supportive, not just, hey, guess what I did? And then everyone else is going like, oh, I wish I could do that. So that leads to jealousy, right? Whereas if that supportive person even comes, like that person who's achieved that, even comes into that support group and says, here's my suggestion for you. And it's like, wow, this is awesome. I'm in an environment where I get to not only be motivated by people who are doing well, have the proven roadmap to success, have coaches to help me, guide me through whenever I start to get overwhelmed by the feeling of being left behind, and have the time to grow and fall into this role that I've decided to take that's new and different and pretty scary, and feeling like I'm left behind because everyone else is ahead of me because I'm just starting out. So I'm talking in my first person because I want you to relate to that, right? I'm not going to tell you that that's how you feel, but if you feel like that and you want to do that, you want to have that support, you want to have that coaching, you want to have that the proven roadmap to follow, then obviously we have that kind of training in the Profit by Design Academy coaching program for the Zazzle platform. And also for if you take that, and then everyone who takes the course, it's like a business course. So in the end, you can apply that to Amazon Merch and Etsy and Shopify and Redbubble, Society 6. But just so you understand, that's the key piece here is if you're going to do this step number 3, like the third way to overcome that feeling of being left behind, is to do something about it and to do the right thing about it. So that, because if you just say, okay, I'm going to start my own business, I'm going to do my own shop, do you have any knowledge about how to do that? No. So of course you're going to feel left behind, and you're going to start to wonder, like, what is it that these people do? How do they do it? Why is it that I can't do this on my own? It should be easy. Just put some products up, right? And whether it's Zazzle, because I'm giving that as an example, or anything else. Like if I just now went out to the basketball hoop that my boys had for when they were in school and played basketball, I can't become like the next NBA player. That's ridiculous. I can sit there and shoot a lot of hoops, but I still need the training from a coach that's created NBA player material. Otherwise, how am I supposed to get that to that caliber? I can't, not on my own. And it would be ridiculous for me to feel that way. And then even more ridiculous for me to go and say, oh, I'm so upset that I'm not that, NBA basketball player yet. Even if Elka told me to say the word yet, I'm not there yet. But like, I'm not really doing anything to get me there yet. Besides standing in front of the hoop and trying to shoot a basketball in and missing like 95% of the time. So the key here is if you're going to take that action, is to take the right actions so that you can feel not overwhelmed and not behind. Okay, so that's it for me. I want you to check out the show notes for the affirmations. I want you to check out the show notes for the link if you are interested in the Profit by Design Academy coaching program. I want you to, that's a side thing for if you're, moving forward in your Zazzle business and you want that help. But the main purpose of this podcast was for you to understand that, hey, you're not actually left behind at all. You're either on the journey you're on and you just need to allow yourself to enjoy the process, or there's more than enough help for you somewhere along the lines of whatever it is that you want to do, so that you can get to that next spot where you are feeling like you're not left behind. So you have total control over what it is that you're doing, and that right away just banishes jealousy, right? Because now you're in control. And so you don't need to be jealous of anyone else, because jealous means you're helpless. Whereas now you're not feeling left behind. You're on your own journey, and you're just deciding what that journey is going to look like. And you're going to feel really good and comfortable making decisions to help you move forward on that journey. So thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next in the next Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur podcast. See you here again next week. Bye.